So today I'm going to give my testimonial. This is a testimonial that I wrote about 2021 when I started my theology studies. And obviously, that's a few years ago now. And I'm currently studying a full-time PhD in theology. Anyway, so that was before this had started. And it was written for the book, testimonials book for the local university college that I've been studying at. And they've published three books. I was the proofreader for the second one and the co-editor for the third one. And if anyone's interested in getting a copy, it's sold at cost price, I think pretty much by someone else. And it's only £5 each, so there's not really any profit, and you're getting it very cheap. Okay. So this is a testimony. This is my testimonial story of how I became a Seventh-day Adventist. And it's entitled My Three Grannies and Grandfather. Perhaps a way that can describe my Christian journey is through my three grannies and a grandfather. Of course, you may immediately wonder how it is possible to have three grannies. Well, two of them were biological, and one was in a way adoptive. First, I'll speak about my maternal granny, who was from nowadays Slovakia. My sister and I called her Babi, granny, which is presumably a familiar word to people from various European countries, although her actual name was Greta. Her husband had died when I was very young, apparently as something like a political prisoner, and she used to come over to England during summer months to stay for some time. We were extremely good friends, and I had fond memories of her barely laughing at my joking behavior, and we used to play endless card games, and she used to make fantastic cheese straws. However, she was an atheist, so we never discussed religion from her side, although, as you'll see, that would not be the last word on that matter regarding her. Next was my paternal granny called Rue, who I loved dearly, and again had fantastic childhood memories. She and her husband, Derek, had a rather amazing house, including a sit-on railway that went around their fairly large garden with swimming pool and tennis court. I can probably say that they were almost perfect grandparents as far as I can imagine, although they had drifted into atheism, having been somewhat religious, being extremely kind, generous, and loving. My grandfather had been some sort of an officer during the war and was a very remarkable, courageous man, and probably the most loyal friend I've had during my life. My mother always said that I had been, unofficially, of course, his favorite grandchild out of the 10 of us. My father has two other brothers, with the youngest being an approximate atheist, and middle one very religious, and he may be got my first or one of the first Bibles. Finally was my adoptive grandmother called Margaret, who was a spinster, an ex-nurse, as far as I remember. Apparently, when my mother asked the local baker about a babysitter, Margaret was there and immediately offered and refused payment. Again, we got on like a house on fire, and I would occasionally stay at her house when my parents were away, and she would also visit my house and myself, and my family would drop round to her. We used to play numerous games of chess and drafts, etc., as well as go on long walks and even a brief holiday, etc. Now, the big difference with Margaret is that she was a devout Christian and a very Christian woman, really salt of the earth, and a remarkable person. As I was her adoptive grandson, I can almost guarantee that she would have often been praying for me, perhaps daily. There is a photo of when I was maybe about 8 or so, perhaps showing me sitting something like the cat that got the cream. In many ways, life was very good. Some interesting spiritual experiences happened to me that I can remember. First, when I was quite young, such as about 5, I suddenly had a realization that there was a good creator and felt influenced to follow a spiritual path. This was in sharp contrast to my later peers, who even at a young age had started to get into heavy metal music, and although was friends with some of them, was thought of as a goody two-shoes to some extent. Most likely Margaret and possibly my uncle and his wife were praying for me, and that was influencing my lifestyle. Next, when I was about 11 or 12 perhaps, a very unusual spiritual experience happened on a school walk. It was a Saturday, and although I went to a Christian primary school, the Saturday Sabbath was never mentioned. Then suddenly on the walk, I had the realization that Saturday is a holy day, and we should be keeping it. Whilst at secondary school, studying the story of a Jewish boy during the Second World War, I had a remarkable resemblance to the boy on the cover of the book. You'll see how that fits in shortly. At A-level, I unexpectedly did well in religious studies and had a chance to try for Oxford, and in my mind I felt that the Bible was the Word of God, although alas did not take the opportunity. My Bible religious studies teacher was an atheist telling us why the Bible was corrupted, studying English literature and creative writing instead elsewhere. In the middle of university, I had volunteered to work on a kibbutz in Israel, then visited the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, and a young Muslim, I assume, man came up to me and punched my arm. I had no idea why. Then when I returned to England, my mother told me for the first time that we were, in fact, Jewish from Greta's side, although it was never talked about. Needless to say, I was not a little surprised. After university, following traveling abroad, I came back and was having trouble from a lump on my neck that was causing me big problems. Did not go to a doctor, as did not want to go the chemotherapy and radiation route of cancer. I prayed to God that if he would save me, I would serve him, and became a vegan, cutting out sugar, doing sport, and eating antifungal foods, such as potent, organic, raw broccoli seeds, as well as turmeric and garlic. I've told perhaps hundreds of cancer sufferers before that I used to pray for as a 3ABN prayer warrior, and others, including one or more doctors that I met, although despite asking for feedback, I'm not sure anyone ever told me it helped them. A few years later, I got baptized in a Baptist church. About that time, I was sitting at my desk, probably with my King James Bible to hand, and I had a sudden, clear, and compelling realization that the Bible was preserved and inspired. Following on from this, I've set up an online ministry which has reached thousands of people, called Matthew 24:14. Whilst I had been tent making and with mostly online English teaching, I felt that I should be also studying theology. My business had been getting far slower due to it not having my heart in it, etc. I started applying to study theology at Newbold and finally have now completed the first semester as a mature student. Now a committed Christian with a religious beard to match, so for my journey from then to now, I can thank my dear three grannies and grandpa who shaped and guided my life, and to me, I'm greatly indebted to them. Okay, thank you for listening to the testimonial, and if you're looking for a Bible-believing church to attend, then I recommend Googling your local Seventh-day Adventist church. Okay. Thank you very much, and see you next time.